You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Infinite diversity.
Live long and prosper, and welcome to Infinite Diversity, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on the BQN Podcast Collective. I'm your host for today, Chrissie, and joining me is my co-host, Thad. Thad, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. I mean, this often happens when you read, but I started reading a book and it sort of transported me to a different place. But that's always fun. How
That's
are
the
you
best
doing?
feeling.
Yeah. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I was told to come to this library, and I was supposed to meet somebody named David, and I thought it was going to be David Tennant, but it's David Ajala, so there's something weird going on there. And then there's
Did
also
somebody
this
turn off
woman
the
who's
lights?
wandering. Somebody turned off the lights, and then there's this woman going around who's telling me not to give any spoilers, and I don't know what she's talking about, so, Thank you for asking. I've been thinking about that for 3 days.
A quick aside,
Yes.
as Doctor Who fans probably know, that two-parter was written by Stephen Moffat, who just wrote this week's episode of the new season of Doctor Who, and it is fantastic.
I have to catch up. I haven't seen it yet, but I am so looking forward to it. Also joining us today is the host of BQN's new Trek Books podcast, which is just making audio something the man has been doing for years on Twitter. Peter Hong, thank you for joining us. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chrissie. Thank you very much, Thad. Doing well. I just came back from the library as well. I had to return a late book, about 800 years late, actually. So glad to take care of that. Yeah, those fees actually are...
Yeah, I was going to say that, like, at some point, so it depends on the library, but some of them, like, once the fine reaches the cost of the book, they stop adding to the fines.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that was the case for you.
Yeah, I think it was.
Otherwise...
Yeah. Yeah. It does add up if it is. But yeah, it's great to be here. We're really excited to talk about Labyrinths and with you.
Awesome. All right. Well, before we jump into our topic for the day, we'd like to take a moment to thank our Patreon patrons who make this show possible, particularly our associate producer, Carl Wonders. Listeners, you can hear your name listed as one of our associate producers for a monthly subscription of just $10 at patreon.com/BQN. And with a monthly Patreon subscription of just $5, you can join all sorts of fun things, including the BQN Star Trek script table reads. Watch your Patreon messages for information on these and other opportunities with your collective. All right, we talked about this before we started recording, that there's no news this week. But it occurred to me, the fact that there's no news this week or previous weeks is kind of odd in that we don't know what's going to be starting up in 2 weeks after Discovery's over.
Nothing, probably.
Well, okay, at this point, yes, nothing. But when's the next thing going to be, right?
Okay, so my assumption is that the deal Netflix and Paramount made vis-a-vis Prodigy involved a clause where they weren't allowed to advertise, to promote or announce anything about Prodigy until Discovery was over. Is my assumption. The only reason, it's the only logical reason I have for why Netflix hasn't said a word about Prodigy Season 2 yet. So my guess is probably in the next month we'll get an announcement about that. I think Paramount has said Lower Decks will be this fall. Yeah. So we're not going to get anything else from Paramount between now and then. They haven't made anything else.
Right.
I mean, Strange New Worlds is still filming, I think, or either still filming or just wrapped up filming. I'm not sure.
Just done, I think. Yeah.
And Section 31 is done, but won't be ready until the end of the year at the earliest.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my guess is in the next month, we'll probably get an announcement from Netflix about Prodigy. I would think either this summer or maybe late fall. But it's probably not going to come out the same time as Lower Decks because they probably have... That's probably also part of the agreement there.
Yeah. Yeah. That was basically what I was figuring too, but it did just pop in my head this morning. I'm like, wow, this, yeah, can be done for a while.
We're gonna have we're not gonna
But
know
that's
what
okay.
to do with ourselves on Sunday mornings.
I'm sure we'll figure something out.
I think that may be a good time to start catching up on the Doctor Who's and the other
There you
shows
go.
that we didn't get
There
a
you
chance
go.
to watch yet. So this will be a good little
Yeah.
bit of a pause on track and watch some of the other shows. I actually like watching the Doctor Who's. You mentioned I watched the Christmas specials with David Tennant and
Yes, that was
Oh,
so
they
good.
were
I haven't
so
had
good.
any, yeah. So those are really good, and I don't know as much as Doctor Who as Star Trek. I know a little bit of it, but I am looking forward to the season 1 or that just started and catching up on those.
Is it season 1
I mean,
/ 56 or something like
Yeah.
that?
I know a fair bit about Doctor Who, but to be fair, I don't know as much about any show as I do about Star Trek. I mean,
Same.
Yeah. Yeah. Same thing. Yeah. This is our number one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And rightly so. All right. Well, let's talk about Labyrinth. Peter, your initial thoughts on this?
Yeah. I liked it a lot. It's another strong episode for season 5, which is my favorite Discovery season so far. It's really quickly. This is I called it, was it an introspection episode? So Star Trek,
good word.
it's almost like a time travel courtroom drama. The sort of different diplomacy. We had that a couple of weeks ago. So there's a sort of certain type of Star Trek plot stories, and this was more of an introspection. So and I'm sure we'll probably talk about the inner light and how this episode reminded a little bit of that style. I think that was probably the most my favorite of that type of story of introspection, and this one is up there with Michael. So overall, I enjoyed it a lot, and it was a good episode. And also, having it take place in a library is just is great as well. So I enjoyed that part of it too. So yeah, overall, it was very good.
Oh yeah, that.
yeah, I liked it a lot. I think, we're continuing on this story in season 5 that is, quite frankly, pretty fantastic. I enjoyed it a lot. I think my only real complaint this week is that I feel like we set up Rune as this cool antagonist last week and then just took him down this week.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I liked how it was done.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
There's that. I think he wasn't expecting it, so that's something to be said for that. I thought it was a good episode as well. I love anything in the library, really. I am a total book nerd. I have seen a lot of people talking about how it reminded them of the Inner Light, and I totally did not get that until I started seeing people talk about it, and I was like, oh, okay, I can see where that thought process is. I loved the librarian. I wish we could see her again ever. I'm sad that we're not going to visit this library with any regularity.
Maybe she'll show up on the Academy show.
Oh, that's a point. Yeah, they have to do research. Yeah. So it's a good episode all around. Well, let's start at the beginning. We are on the Breen ship, and we are at Locke's. I put funeral in quotes because we're expecting he might come back from the dead. So well, maybe. And Maul promises very vocally, over Rune's unhappiness about it, I think, that she can restore Locke and assist in placing him on the throne. That was to put the words together right. I didn't expect that she was going to be quite so quick to take over. Does that make sense?
mhm.
I mean, I know it's the end of the
Yeah,
episode by the
yeah,
time she takes over, but she
yeah,
certainly
yeah,
addresses
Considering
herself.
how historically xenophobic the Breen have been shown to be, I was surprised at how accepting of her they
Mhm.
were.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. Same here. I think that actually uh, um, brings up a good point in that of the whole episode I really enjoyed, but that piece at the very end in which Mal takes over the crew so quickly, that was the part that I didn't understand, or I didn't hit. It didn't hit me as well as the other parts of the story. So it just seems a little bit too easy, and more like a plot device to sort of get set for the next for the next episode, or
Yeah.
the big fight or whatever is going to be happening. So that was a little bit odd, but yeah, but yeah.
Yeah. I guess that tells us something about their culture in terms of valuing marriages and the value of bringing people into the family and into the group,
Mhm.
which is interesting to me. I also think Rune was probably a real son of a bitch to work for. So maybe there
Yeah.
was an opportunity there for everybody on the ship who wasn't in a position of power.
To move up a level or something like that.
Get rid of the boss. That's a problem. If this one's a problem, we'll get rid of her
Yeah.
later too.
Yeah. Yeah, I was, like you mentioned before, I was also, surprised at Rune, because I expected Rune to last until episode 10. I mean, they have the final, the final fight and stuff. So I expected him to do that. So I was surprised in which it ended, his journey ended here. So interesting. Yeah. The way they set things up and kind of, do a little bit of a, change of pace or switching things around. So.
Yeah. So then we head to the archive, and archivist Hyrel shows up with strict instructions and a list of things that they like to talk about before people come in. And like I have seen it happen. I know I have done it to people myself. Something else is going on, and I'm in the middle of explaining something that is really important to me, and they do not care.
Yep.
Like, we need to focus now. We want to try not to die in our ship here, but so that was good. That was good. I think we don't have a dungeon. It's more of an oubliette. Maybe one of my
That's a
favorite
great
lines from
line.
Trek overall ever. And how nice to have a book visit me in the library for a change. That was really cute. I was not expecting that. It's such an obvious pun, and I wasn't expecting it, and it made me happy. So props to the writers and the actress for playing it so well.
Yeah, I like Hyrel a lot. She is, by the way, she is an Afrosian, which is the same species as the Federation president in Star Trek VI.
Mm-hmm.
One
guy in Star Trek 4 who looks like
Yes.
exactly the same. There was always the joke that he went from being the con officer to the president in 2 years.
It's possible, but it was different actors.
It's possible. Yeah, no, I know.
But I also really like when she tells the Breen, "May you gain knowledge elsewhere."
Yes, yes. That's the new F off. In the same way that, the F around and find out is Picard saying you may test that. You may test that theory at your leisure.
Yes.
Yeah, I also liked her line when she said, "Not responsible for any damage, dismemberment, or death if you don't follow the instructions," or something like that. So it was a good, good kind of funny that humorous tone that she brings to the show, to the character.
Mm-hmm. Libraries are dangerous places. You don't usually have to worry about, losing limbs, but it's. I suppose if it's an archive of everything from every culture, there's stuff in there that could probably do some damage. Imagine what the Klingon part of it looks like.
So this was actually filmed on location in the rare books section of the University of Toronto Library, which I thought was pretty cool.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a great set. Yeah, it was a really great set that that showed that visual part of it was very memorable for this episode.
I hope the librarians there, the people working there, are Trek fans and could have really geeked out about that. That's fun. Right. Okay. So we have and they have to trust her because she gives them directions of how to get in, and they don't necessarily make sense on the face of them. So they have to do that, and then they get there, and she asks for Book to come to the library because they have an artifact from Quajon that they can't identify, which I thought was interesting, because you would have thought that whenever, I guess, however it got to them, it would have been identified, but I guess it doesn't. That's not necessarily the case with things. So, what do you guys think about that with the Quajon world route? That's what it was.
I mean, I think it's pretty cool. It seemed, I guess, in a way, is that sort of like because maybe the Quajon don't really have a lot of books, so that was sort of their knowledge that they donated to the library?
Ooh. I didn't think of that, because there is that. I wonder if the cutting would have the connectiveness even without the original being there. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. I also hadn't thought of them not having a lot of books, but
I mean, I don't know if
no, I know, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the rule, you can take it, but you just have to let us know what happened to it later, which is very trusting, but...
And I think they wouldn't normally have that, let someone take it at all, but in this specific instance, because Quajon is no more, and he is one of the last of the Quajon, they realize how important it would be to him.
Yeah, and he did play that beautifully. I mean, you really, that was gut-wrenching to watch.
Yeah. I kind of like that, how this scene connects with what happened in past seasons. So it's like a way of connecting, and I think Discovery has been kind of doing that pretty frequently this season. So sort of bringing back some of the story arcs and events of past seasons. So it was nice, and like you said, I like how David Ajala acted in that scene, because it kind of brings back a lot of that memories and things that's happened and all the trauma that he experienced. So it was a really good scene for him.
Do you think he's gonna? Is that like a route that's going to be able to replenish itself if he plants it somewhere?
Yeah, I imagine so.
Yeah, I hope we see that. And that would be cool. All right, so Michael gets the book that she needs. It's got this little piece of metal in it that zaps her into a mind puzzle. What do we call it? A mindscape? Is that what you call it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Book is there as the guide, as lack of a better term, but of course it's just a image from her brain.
Yeah, and he's wearing a Time Lord outfit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the librarian outfit, because Hyrule wears the same thing, but it looks like a Time Lord robe.
It is a very impractical garment for a librarian, I have to say. Unless you can carry books on the shoulder pads, I don't know.
I think those shoulder pads might, if you turn abruptly, it might sort of knock something off, off a shelf or so.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's part of the danger.
Yeah.
They're very sharp. So the program
shoulder
is
pads
designed
that cause the dismemberment. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. The program is designed to reflect the most important thing in the the accessor's life at that moment. Okay. And so I think on first watch, until Burnham realizes it, I didn't actually pick up on that on the first watch. It was like he said that, but it kind of went over. It was like, okay, yeah, that's what it is. They're in the library, of course that's important. But it's not until later, of course, when she's kind of analyzing what's going on, that you realize really how significant that is. that was an interesting
Yeah.
way of looking at her character. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that could be kind of an example of what the Avatar book was trying to make the point of, because Michael sometimes have a tendency to sort of like dive in straight into the problem, trying to solve it and move on. So, and she did that, with the first few attempts on trying to solve the puzzle, but it was only after she did some introspection, step back, try to almost like recap and review the whole adventure, that she realized the importance of that of the library, and then that kind of helped her sort of lead the path to the solution. So so sort of like, I think a lot of like foreshadowing and hints was given, but we just didn't know it until the end, or until we watch it again.
Yeah. This season has been a good one for rewatching, picking up new info. Yeah, for sure. All right. So, and this is Dr. Derrick's program, of course. That's the last of the clues we need to put together. She's trying to figure out where the clues would be, or how they would be hidden, or how they would be revealed, right? And what appears but a card catalog.
Yeah. That was my favorite, or one of my favorite little quick scenes, because I remember using the card catalog back in college.
Yeah, it occurs to me that there are probably some people watching this episode who have no idea what that is.
I thought of that too, and then I felt old.
Yeah.
Because I hate those things where it's like, you've never seen blah blah blah. I mean, it can be funny too. Like there's one with a bunch of like 13-year-olds trying to figure out a rotary phone. That's funny to me, but at the same time you're just like, oh yeah, okay.
So like when I was in elementary school, we actually like learned how to use a card catalog. We had a test on it and everything. Like this was going to be important knowledge that we would need throughout the rest of our lives and the rest of our education. And hey, guess what? That wasn't true. Like even at the time, even at the time that I learned how to use a card catalog, my public library already had a public computer that you could use to search for. I mean, it was like some command line DOS program, so it wasn't like what you'd think of today as a public computer terminal to use. But it was even then you could already, like, they still had the card catalog, but you could also use the computer even then.
Yeah.
And I can honestly say I have never in my life used a card catalog when doing research for a paper for school, which is what I was told that I would need to do when I took that test in elementary school.
I had that, and I did use card catalog for some of my undergrad stuff, but not for any of the grad stuff. But my undergrad at University of Wyoming, I think, has a little bit less money to update things than did Central Michigan, so that's probably why.
Sure.
They had a computer database too, but they still had the card catalog, and some of the older stuff was not updated. So, being a historian, that's where I ended up, because I needed the older stuff. But I tell you what I have used is microfiche, which is set up like a card catalog, and that is
Yeah, no, I have also used
That's
microfiche before, and that is, I feel like even that is becoming less and less common because they're scanning those in these days. Yeah. But that definitely was something that I did use back in the 90s for some paper or something.
I'm trying to think. I think it was a mid-aughts. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, did you use I think it was microfilm, because it's that reel to reel, as well as the microfiche, sort of the flat squares. So the microfilm, I ended up like just cranking up that handle just to keep going to the right page, and then sort of cranking it back. So and I think the technology has changed so much over the years. Everything, a lot more things are online, and you don't need the physical materials as much anymore.
Which in some ways is unfortunate because a
Yeah.
lot of it's behind paywalls, and that's really
Yes.
annoying. So, like you used to be. I mean, like not every library had the entirety of the, like, say the New York Times in a, microfilm, but you could put your hands on it without having to pay for it.
Mhm.
Or,
Yeah,
whatever,
my
newspaper.
local library certainly had all of the local newspaper going back to
Mhm,
like
mhm.
1900 or something.
Yeah.
And because I remember that's what I actually, because it was I think it was like a fifth grade, like we had to do some sort of report on like the history of the town or something, and that's actually where I looked at some old newspapers from early 20th century.
Primary source material, good man.
Mhm.
I know a few years ago I was looking for local stuff from the local paper, and the library did not have the microfilms anymore, and it was because they had been sent over to the place to digitize them, and they hadn't gotten around to digitizing it yet. So there's this gap.
Yeah,
That's great.
and I think that's
scary.
that's probably a big problem throughout. A lot of that stuff is not easily accessible digitally anymore. Now, New York Times obviously is because it's the New York Times, but like
Just first off the top of my head,
But yeah, like local news, local documents, all that stuff is certainly not easily accessible over the internet. Even if your library does have a digital thing on it, you're probably still not gonna have a good time trying to find it online.
Yeah. All right. Well, back to Discovery and away from elder millennials talk about libraries. It's all right. It's all right. Listeners, share your wonderful library stories. If you want. That's but yes, I had the same thought. I looked at the card catalog and I went, for me, some people don't get that.
But I just had one other library thought. Sorry, we're talking about the newspapers and microfilm, so that also just reminded me. And for all I know, they probably actually still have this. But did your library have the big long wooden sticks with slots in it?
Yes.
They would put the newspapers through?
Yeah.
Yes.
Those are still there.
Yep. Yep, the library that I primarily use anymore, they still have it. We don't have a daily paper in Saginaw anymore, but they still have that. And
Nice.
It's so cool. I don't know who's looking at it. Somebody must be, because they wouldn't be doing it anymore.
I would hope so.
But, so
they have those sticks at map stores or cartographer stores. Because they have,
that makes sense.
Those larger maps, so you kind of see them as well in those stores. How they display the maps. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I cannot remember the last time I read a physical newspaper. I honestly could not tell you. It has been quite some time. I read articles from the local paper online frequently, but can't remember the last time I actually read a physical paper.
Yeah, we quit getting the paper a long time ago, and then we were getting the Sunday paper, and then for the coupons, and then it got to a point where they stopped putting the coupons in it because they all got digitized, and it was like, oh, okay, well, there's no point in buying this anymore. It's almost like they are putting themselves out of business, but that's a whole other conversation. What I loved was that Michael knew what to do with it. Which, of course, for the story, we're not going to have a moment of where she's like, oh, I don't know what this is, I need to figure it out. But Vulcan education, including old Earth ways of looking up things in libraries. Actually, my headcanon is that's Amanda. Because there's no reason that would be part of the Vulcan education.
All right,
but she probably had a card catalog in their house.
Well, that wouldn't surprise. But also, like, Vulcans use, like, scrolls for things, right? So, it's possible Vulcans still use something like a card catalog to keep track of all those scrolls.
That's possible. I like that. All right. So she goes to the history section because that's where you learn everything, and looks for materials on the Dominion War. I I think we've heard more about the Dominion War in this season of Discovery than maybe we have since it was actually happening. I mean, we get a little bit. There was a little bits in Picard, but I love that.
Hey, Paramount, if you're gonna talk about it a lot, maybe you should, I don't know, remaster the show that tells us about it.
Yeah, that would be great. Mm-hmm. Maybe if Sony buys them or whoever's lined up at the moment. I just hope that whoever buys them improves the interface on Paramount Plus, because
Yeah.
it's atrocious.
So apparently, sorry, and again, this is a tangent, but apparently...
This is what our listeners come for, is the tangents.
Fair.
I hope.
Based on what I have heard, and it's possible that this is unsubstantiated, they don't have a film scanner anymore. They sold it.
Huh?
Yeah, apparently. So, like, if they wanted to, they would have to buy or rent a film scanner to scan all of the film that DS9 was shot on.
Okay. First question, why did they only have one?
That's an excellent question.
Second question, okay, you're telling me that Paramount has no other old stuff that they might want to redigitize and take care of? There's nothing at all from, the beginning of the 20th century all the way through. Fine. And third, that does explain why it took so long for Next Gen and original series, actually, if they were only working with one.
My understanding is a lot of their really old stuff, they sold the rights to other companies a long time ago.
Yeah. And some of it's out of copyright.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
no, I'm just being a little...
My understanding is that is
there.
one of the hurdles. Because it was... And again, I am very sorry if this is all wrong. This is all, just like hearsay from various discussions on the internet. But... but
that's always right.
But my understanding is like between when the DS9 documentary was made and when the Voyager documentary was started, they had sold the scanner, so it was a real problem for the Voyager documentary people because they weren't able to scan that film like the DS9 people were.
Did they end up? Well, I guess we'll know when we see it. I guess
we'll know if we ever get that documentary, which I wouldn't hold my breath on. I mean, I'm sure I am positive they are working on it and we will get it someday, but I wouldn't. They have pushed it back so much since it started that I really couldn't say when it'll happen.
Yeah. Somebody who's like at admiral level for Delta Flyers, go ask them about that. Since they get their questions answered.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not the Delta. So like,
I was being. Yeah. I know they don't necessarily know.
Right, like I get what you're saying. Yes, they do get their questions answered, but at the same time, Garrett and Robbie aren't making the documentary. They're just in it.
I know. I know. I'm just being. I don't know. I've had too much coffee this morning. I'm just being goofy. Right. So, turns out history section is not the place to go. I thought it was interesting too.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm sorry. One thing about that history section is that this is a sort of almost like another, recap of season 5, because she mentioned, she looked at the Dominion War. She looked at the Beta Set section. She mentioned Trill. She mentioned Mirror Universe. So it was like a little mini recap, because those were some of the, references from earlier episodes in season 5. So it was interesting. They kind of continued that theme of making references and callbacks.
Yeah. It made sense because she ran through like each of the clues and each of the people who were involved in it. Yeah. It was also interesting to me, and of course, being that this is that kind of an archive, and this is Burnham's mindscape, so I feel like she's going to make it more difficult for herself, because that's the kind of person she is. That they were all hard copy books, and she was kind of just like flipping through indexes, and it was just like, that's not how you find stuff. Well, I mean, it is, but it's not.
So I do actually wonder about this, about the hard copy.
Okay.
So the hard copy books look cool, and
Yeah.
it absolutely adds to the atmosphere of the episode and everything else. But I feel like this library actually would have a digital copy of every book, every physical book.
Oh,
that's on the shelf.
absolutely. I mean, that should be the first time that, or the first thing that happens when anything
Yeah.
comes into it, is it gets digitized. Well, like I said, it's in her head. So
Burn them in her own
Yeah.
head, absolutely. But like even on like the outside, they're still looking at books. That's why I'm saying that.
oh, that's true. Yeah. Well, they're old fashioned.
Which, speaking of when they're looking at books, I do want to comment and kudos to Claire Little at TrekCore in her review where she mentions, because I had noted this down too, but Claire's commentary was hilarious. They said that the one of the books that Marina Derricks had checked out was the Comprehensive Guide to Talaxian Hairstyles,
Yeah.
which I thought was
Yes.
funny. And then in the TrekCore review, she said, which I have to assume is only 3 pages long, as there's not a whole lot of variety there.
That's beautiful. It's so true. Yeah, that's funny. I tried to pause it when the pile of books about the Dominion War was around Burnham, but I couldn't see what any of the titles were. So
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, Marina Derricks in the 24th century had a book called The Comprehensive Guide to Talaxian Hairstyles. Who wrote this book? How did it get in the library in the Alpha Quadrant? And was it just Tom Paris looking at Neelix every day for 7 years and then writing a book? Like,
oh, well, they did say that she became an archivist, right?
right.
She joined the art. So I mean,
So presumably yes,
she was there after Voyager got back, and yeah,
right. But she wouldn't have gone to the Delta Quadrant, and there wouldn't have been people that went to the Delta Quadrant to study Talaxians, as far as we know. So like, why does this book exist?
Okay, maybe we're being too literal. Okay, in the way that A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is not actually the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh, maybe maybe it's like Naomi Wildman's memoir or something.
I was thinking Neelix's, but sure.
Well, would Neelix have written a memoir that they would have in the Alpha Quadrant? Because wouldn't he have written it after he left Voyager?
Yeah, but how old is Naomi Wildman? What does she have to write about it? I mean, I shouldn't say that because I don't know. But yes, that was
right. It could
was a fantastic.
It could very well be someone on Voyager's memoir. That's a very good point.
Yeah, or even a piece of fiction.
Yes.
Yeah. But I did love that. Yep. And they did the pure Star Trek thing where they took three things that exist and they gave them an alien name and then something that's from Earth. Because it was the Talaxian Hair Guide, a couple other things, and Euclidean geometry. And I was like, okay. They always do that.
Sometimes it's the other way, where they'll do 2 things from Earth and 1 alien thing. But yes.
Yeah. Oh. I hadn't, that didn't even click for me. I love it. Okay. All right. So we're looking for this information. The book Avatar, whatever you want to call, can answer some yes or no questions, which I thought that was great. Burnham then decides that it's a maze. Okay. And she finds out that she's going to die if she fails, which is a little bit like, I feel like there wasn't enough time there for that, but that's fine. And he hands her a bucket of sand, an old-fashioned bucket of sand like you used to see in places before fire extinguishers were around.
How old are you, Chrissie?
I'm not. I watched Downton Abbey. Card catalogs, sand fire extinguisher buckets. Yep.
Yeah. But this bucket of sand actually is a sort of perpetual sand, it seems, because it just keeps on
Yeah.
Like sand comes out, but we haven't seen it being filled. So I was
You
when
could-
I was
all
watching
sorts
it
of
for the
things
first
can happen
time.
when you're in someone's
Yeah.
mind.
Yes.
So
Yeah, it was that. Oh. Right, and she's also tracking it with her tricorder, which I have to kind of ask, like, I guess if you could do that in your mindscape. She decided that the tricorder couldn't do it on its own, so she needed the sand. There's a lot of, you could do a lot of psychoanalysis here if one wanted to. So then she gets back to where they started, because that's where she thinks they need to go. And then, of course, that also is not the right place to go. So now we have to figure out what it is. What did you guys think about this whole know thyself element and how that might relate to the overall issue?
I think I probably would have died.
Okay, well, that's fine.
I'm just thinking, like, that kind of complete understanding of oneself is not something that I've ever been, like, good at. So
Yeah.
I feel like defining oneself and all that. Nope. Like, I feel like if I had been in Michael's place, the lights would have gone out and I'd have been done for.
I'm sure you would have figured it out if the Breen not killing everybody depended on it, you know.
It actually reminded me a little bit of it's almost like a little bit of like a performance self-evaluation or performance evaluation you get at work, because at work sometimes
and I'm
you get
terrible
like
at those
360
things.
feedback, or you write about yourself, have your peers write about yourself, and your boss write about yourself, and then you kind of have a difficult time reading everything. So it reminded me a little bit about that. So I don't know if I would have performed as well as Michael did. I think it would have taken, if I were to get the solution at all, it would just take a lot longer. I think I would, I think the clock would run out by if I were doing it. So,
Yeah.
So but it was good. Like I said, it was, Trek does these, introspection episodes every once in a while. And so this was the way they approached it was pretty good. And it was a little different spin or variation on this type of story.
This whole series has kind of been about who she is, right? I mean, it just seems a very cumulative, I guess is the word I'm looking for. We were talking earlier in the season about how Raynor is in the right place if he needs to figure out, how to deal with his traumas, because the entire Discovery crew is just full of people dealing with their traumas. And yeah, I think it was. I liked that she had to come to the point of understanding why things settled out the way they did. With Book in particular is I think where that goes, but how that's indicative of the rest of her life, and it is a good indication of how far she's come. When you look back on the first episode, the flashback when she's being brought onto Shenzo with Sarek, and how she's just Vulcan, and now to have that understanding about her own emotional state is good.
Yeah. I think really Michael's journey has become, that's sort of a theme throughout all the seasons, but I think it kind of comes to a head in this season, because a lot of the episodes deals with that, and also the relationship with Book, like you said, because it's almost like each episode this season had at least something that provides more color or more insight into her relationship with Book. Some of it's from Michael's side, and then some of the scenes were from Book's side, so in which Book was sort of driving the narrative. There was, in this episode, sort of Michael was kind of driving it, but yeah, it's each episode, it seems this season kind of has, they do take the time to work on to work on that and advance that. So I know there's only 2 more episodes to go, so looking forward to see what's going to be happening and how that will get resolved.
Yeah. So There was suggestion of a lot of parallels with the Inner Light. Do you guys see these?
Yes and no. Like, I don't see a parallel to the Inner Light in the sense of the overall story of the Inner Light, like, at all.
Oh, gods, no.
But, like, the concept of her being trapped in her mind to do something, sure, but there have been plenty of Star Trek episodes where that happens.
It's true. Very true. Very true.
Yeah, I think there is because I saw the parallels when I was watching it even the first time with with having that mindscape and living, or at least experiencing something else that only she is experiencing. There was also some almost like visual or visual commonalities between those scenes and the internet in relation to actually Beverly and Culber, sort of that part of it, and Riker and Rayner. I mean, it's more visual, the way that Michael was on the ground, and then the CMO was monitoring it while the first officer was trying to see. So there's a visual. It's almost like the way they shot it, or filmed it, had some type of callback. There was even, I think, there was even that that medical screen that Culber was using, and then Beverly was using the tricorder to monitor. Those types of little reference. I don't know if it was, it may have been on. I don't know if it was on purpose or that's just there's not a whole lot of variations one can do in that situation, but it just reminded me of those two from a visual perspective as well.
Yeah. I think we're gonna see in the next 2 episodes going forward, and we probably would have seen more going forward if they hadn't been canceled, because I feel like you don't really get what happened to Picard and how it changed him in the Inner Light until later. Until you see what the flute means to him, until you see what the relationships around him, he realizes what they mean to him. And then later, of course, in Picard, when he loses the opportunity to have the family and child, and how much of a loss he feels there. It's just maybe we'll find out.
So maybe that's a good point, because in Inner Light, the adventure, his adventure sort of ends at the end, but the aftermath of it we knew more about that in subsequent episodes and stories. So we'll see if Discovery goes in that uses that approach or not, depending, or it maybe end up being kind of Michael work on the final clue or the final step of the treasure hunt, and we may not get as much of a callback, but I guess we'll see. I
think if we see her decide that she doesn't have to constantly be on the move trying to save the galaxy or the equivalent, then I feel like that she will have gotten the point with that. But we'll see. I don't know. It's like there's so much in these episodes that it's like, oh, if you had another season to play with these stories. Okay. All right, so she figures it out, and she gets the clue. Now, in the meantime, the Breen have demanded access to the archive, and they threaten the archive, and that's when we get the wonderful Hyrel line of, "May you find knowledge elsewhere." I just love that. The Breen have a shield tunnel thingy. That was kind of cool. Seemed.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like that's kind of an obvious thing that could have been done always. Or am I forgetting that they had that during the Dominion War or something?
I don't know.
No, you're shaking your head. No.
If they did, I don't remember it.
No, I don't think so.
Or it could be sort of newer technology that they've developed, since then.
Yeah.
Watching
it
800 years.
It has been 800 years. No, but I guess what I was getting at was watching it. I felt like that's something that everybody should have been able to do to everybody. Because if it was just a matter of meeting harmonic resonance or whatever it was,
And
That's
they
fine.
have been able to do that in the past in various instances when they know, but like knowing the frequency was always like impossible unless you
Oh
knew it
yeah,
ahead
that's
of
true.
time. Like
And
think
the boom
about
were just
Generations when
tunneling.
they had
Yep.
to use Geordie's visor to find it and stuff like that.
Yeah, that bit of plot line. Um,
That's not the
did
worst part of Generations.
Oh, not at all, not at all. And it does give you one of those wonderful scenes with Lursa and Baitor where they're complaining
Human
about the fact that he's
females are
just
so
wandering around the
repulsive.
ship. um, right.
He's the only
Lost my
engineer
train
in
of thought.
Starfleet who doesn't go to engineering.
Oh yes. Right. So it's decided that Discovery is going to pull the Breen away, basically distract them while Michael is still passed out, and they're trying to figure out the where the clue is going to be, and hold them out for as long as humanly possible, as it were. We got to see. Oh shoot! Is it Reese that was
Reese,
in the command chair? Yeah.
Yeah.
And he does.
Yeah.
He sits in that chair very well. He's got the Riker
Oh,
lean
yeah.
down. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
actor tweeted out, apparently when they filmed that scene, his wife was in labor, and so he finished filming the scene of getting to be captain, and then he found out that he had a child, or that
Wow.
everybody had come through
Oh.
safely, which was really you could kind of feel from the tweet that he was been waiting all season until that happened so he could tweet out about it.
So his acting of being in a high stress situation wasn't necessarily acting.
Yeah, there's probably some
real life.
serious, there's probably some reality in the back of that, but I thought that was really sweet.
Yeah, no,
Wow.
that's really cool.
But also, like, oh, he couldn't be there with her either. So anyway, yeah.
when they're talking about what they can do to combat various things, and Jet Reno mentions that when she got this idea from the Hesperians once, which is cool because the Hesperians are Commander Billup's people in Star Trek Lower Decks, the Ren Fair people.
Okay.
And she said they really like to party, and we know from Lower Decks that this is true.
Yeah. Oh, I want the Jet Reno story.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be a good memoir. They should do that.
That would be an amazing book.
Yeah. That's. I hope she shows up on Academy.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, the Jen Reese scenes I actually really liked, and because and that was one thing I think I've mentioned it over the last few years on and off on Twitter, that I wish the Discovery Bridge crew we knew a little bit more of, and they had more stuff to to do. And so this is an example of something like that. Because he was really being a commander, being a a leader, explaining his decisions and why to to leave that area, things like that. So it was really good that they have him able to do something like that. So I know it's like now it's ending, but at least they were able to do that, and so I'm glad they gave him that role. And because that was one thing I felt was kind of at least I wasn't used to when with the Discovery, even though the show is sort of a different type of show compared to the way that the characters are, but it was nice that so I was really happy when I saw that. So yay, finally, so Reese in command. I think there was one quick thing. I think it might have been like season 3 in which Nilsson, who was in the chair, but the scene started and then she got up and left the chair when one of the captains came. So we didn't really have a scene with her in the chair, but this was good. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I guess that you can say that goes to show how much we don't get the rest of the bridge crew, that I was not sure of his name off the top of my head, which is a trouble I have had with this show from the beginning. It's just like, okay, other than Michael and the people she's immediately interacting with, on a regular basis who get to be in the credits. But yeah, that's another. We've gone up and down all over the place with the fact that this isn't an ensemble show, so you shouldn't expect it to be an ensemble show and all of that. But it still feels like there's a lot of story there that we could have had if it were 25 episode seasons like back in the day. But anyway, all right. So there's a bit of negotiation between Burnham and Rune. Burnham agrees to give Rune the clue, the whole thing, in order to spare the archive. Of course, after they figure out all the information. And then Rune is going to double cross them, and Maul doesn't appreciate that, and so she ends up killing him. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I found it interesting. So it was after he had already apparently destroyed the Discovery, but it was when he was going to destroy the library, which he had sworn a sacred oath that he wouldn't. That's when it, yeah. And maybe that's part of. Yeah, the Breen are with her because he swore that oath, and we also know that there are important Breen artifacts in the library. So.
So that goes maybe to what we were talking about at the beginning about how easy it was for them to make the jump.
Yeah.
I wonder if there was the lieutenant Breen or the one that was second in command, because there was a few little. I think I read it somewhere. It might have been on Twitter, and then when I watched it the second time, it kind of became a little bit more. Was able to see it that there was some maybe like nonverbal communication or not sort of nods, little pauses in which the lieutenant reacted or didn't react. So it kind of seemed like the lieutenant was starting to not defend Rune as much as in the beginning. So I don't know if we'll see if that plays out, or maybe it's just me seeing something that isn't there. But I think that there was something there, because I think it was the lieutenant who, I think was it Arissa or something like that. Her name, Arisar, I think Arisar, who defended Maul at the end, and that kind of started
I gotta
his
tell
downfall.
you, I have a lot of trouble telling the Breen apart for obvious reasons.
That's the idea. They want you to have a lot of trouble telling them apart.
They all look alike.
Right. In this case, they really do all look alike. I'm not being racist, I swear.
Yeah, that is. I know they've got like insignia on them, and you're supposed to be able to at least indicate that. But no, I've got no idea. Like, you're all in helmets. That's it.
If they were in Starfleet uniforms and I already knew what the insignia meant, then it would probably be easier. But as it is, I don't know what one's badge means compared to another's. So it all just goes over my head.
Yeah.
It might even be almost like the subtitles, it's like that would give a hint, because at least if they like in this one case they reference him directly, but visually it is hard. You're right.
I do speaking of the subtitles, I do like that the Breen speak in the same font as the Klingons from season 1.
Yes. I think every foreign language we've had on Discovery has been in that font, which is cool. It's consistency, I guess. Yeah.
And then they started. They started speaking in Breen, and then they kind of changed it to English, and they created that in episode reason why, I think, to give Maul showing respect to Maul, I think, or something like that, and then this way everyone can kind of understand it without
well, it's because Maul can't understand them otherwise, because there's the one point where she says, "Whatever you said, this is more important," and it's just like, she doesn't know what they're saying when they speak Breen.
I wonder sometimes if they know without the suit. No, I mean, yes, I joking aside, but the suits translate everything for them. So, I mean, maybe there's, still going back to the novels where you have different types of Breen, and that's why they all wear the suits. But I have to figure that she had there had to be people on that ship who were aware of what was going on with her and Locke, and either ignored it or actively help them, you know. So I think she had a support system she could probably lean on a bit when she came into that, because I don't know that if she didn't have that, she would have been quite so quick to just make demands, if that makes sense. Yeah. Well, then they get the key thing. We know the coordinates for the where the progenitor tech is, and on to the next episode.
And there's a clue that Avatar book told Michael that
Yes.
we don't know yet. We don't know. It's kind of a bit of a like reveal. Oh, to be revealed in the next couple of episodes. But there was a quick little reference there.
And that's something that the Breen do not have.
Which means Maul doesn't have it.
Right.
Too. So, however this falls out in terms of who finds it and who tries to do anything with it, that'll be interesting. I was about to say that'll be relevant, but it's obviously going to be relevant. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been in there.
So I do want to call out one of our replacement bridge officers, Commander Jemison, is most likely a reference to NASA astronaut Mae Jemison, who previously appeared in an episode of TNG.
Yes. I caught that too, and I forgot. I hadn't written it down. That was good. I'm glad that they're paying attention to that type of thing.
Yeah, one thing that it reminded me a little of the Michael's part of this episode reminded me of Deanna's bridge officer's test in TNG.
Oh, I could see that.
Yeah, because in the in Deanna's bridge officer's test, it was like, part of the test was confronting her fear, or one of the main part at the end, the one that it took a while for her to pass. She tried it several times, couldn't pass it, and so she had to. You can't
command unless you're willing to kill Geordi.
Kill some, right? So eventually she realized that was the solution. So she was confronting her fears and trying to work around it, and then that aspect of Michael's journey here, confronting her fears, reminded me of that little bit from TNG.
What's always been wild to me about that episode is that was the thing. She had to be willing to order an officer to their death. But have we ever seen an episode of Star Trek where that has happened? We've had plenty where they've volunteered.
Yeah,
like Radhakrishnan, for example.
But Trip Tucker, Spock, lots of them have volunteered. Arium, but have we ever seen a captain order an officer to do something that they know will kill them?
Not that I can think of where it actually follows through that it kills them.
Yeah.
Because there's always a workaround that fixes things.
Yeah.
Huh.
That's a good point. Just being prepared, but and glad that it hasn't happened yet.
My other complaint was that Troy took that test and it made her a commander, whereas Data clearly had already taken the test because he was the second officer on the ship, and yet he was not a commander.
Yeah.
But I've already complained about that.
Yeah. What's always bothered me about that test is that, and it bothers me even more now in retrospect because they have all the dots. There's really not a piece of technology that you can send in to fix the thing. I know. That's the whole point. I get it. But, yeah. Yeah. I think I would have rather seen her doing the Kobayashi Maru, but and probably by that time everybody knows how to get around it. Yeah. Anyway.
You just change the parameters of the test.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, we usually are wandering.
This was a straightforward episode because you were leading it, and you actually know how to keep us wrangled. Whereas when I lead it, we just go everywhere.
I don't know about that. But all right.
But
Anything else we want to discuss about this episode?
We've covered all of my notes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
I think that's maybe
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a quieter episode leading into the last two. I think that's part of
Well,
it too.
next week is
Yeah.
going to be the penultimate episode, and it's directed
Mhm.
by Jonathan Frakes. So I would not expect it to be quiet.
No, and not that this was
Mhm.
quiet necessarily, but
Right.
it was
Yeah.
straightforward.
Yeah. I think I kind of I like like you said, it was a good episode with some actually just like the maze, kind of like some little going the wrong track, coming back in track, and then going to the right track. So it was a
They just
well-
felt
well
like
done,
giving
yeah.
you an
Mhm.
easy time of editing the podcast this week, Chrissy.
Yeah, there we go. That was it. That was why.
Yeah. Oh, there was one thing. Actually, one more. With Rainer. Yeah, one thing with Rainer, I noticed that was. I mean, he didn't have a whole lot of scenes in this episode, but one thing I did, was like he made that command decision. I think with Reese when he was evaluating,
Oh, yeah.
thinking about what needs to be done. The Reem was coming. Michael's still unconscious or still in her mindscape. So. So Rainer said, go get out of there, come back in a little while. We're going to stay here. Give me 5 more minutes. So, so that was, I mean, he didn't have, like I said, he didn't have a lot of scene time this week, but I shows him sort of continuing, the growth as a captain, as a leader, or as a leader of this group of officers on Discovery. So I like that part. Kind of helped develop him a little bit more. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think the moment when he says it doesn't matter if we're all dead, there is. I think that's the first time in the whole season that there's been an acknowledgement of it won't be the literal end of the world if we don't get it. But I think he's thinking of that where if the Breen are going to destroy the archive, they'll destroy the clue, and that nullifies the threat of them having it. So anything else? All right. Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining us in the discussion today. Where can listeners find you online, and tell us about Trek Book Club? Anything else you want to mention?
Sure, great. Well, thank you for having me. Thanks, Chrissy. Thanks, Dad. I really had a great time talking about this episode, especially since it takes place in a library. So you can reach me on Twitter. It's at PeterTrek1, the number 1. And I'm also available at the Trek Book Club, where we read and discuss Trek books on Twitter approximately once every 6 weeks over a weekend. And actually this weekend, we're actually discussing a book online, The Genesis Wave, book 2. So you can reach us there. The handle is at Trek Book Club. And there's also a podcast, a companion podcast, which is a member of the BQN podcast network, like Infinite Diversity, so we're a sister podcast. So I have a show in which talk with different club members. We talk about recent books that we've discussed online. There's also sometimes I talk with fans or some authors about writing Trek books or doing Trek literature topics. So so it's not as frequent as Infinite Diversity. It's like whenever I can, I try to put one out. But I'm hoping to do a little bit more going forward. Yeah,
I understand that completely.
Yeah.
And listeners, there's going to be a gap here with Infinite Diversity, so it sounds like the perfect time to catch up.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And the back catalog is available on the BQN network on wherever you get your podcast. So there's episodes already available. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep. All right, Thad, where can people find you when you're not digging through a card catalog?
Best place to find me is probably on Twitter. I am at Tyrannicus. That's TYRANICUS. You can also find me on all of the various social networks where people who no longer post on Twitter have gone under the same handle. And you can hear me on the podcast I do with my friend Carl called License to Spiel. That's license spelled with a C like the British do it, where we started out talking about James Bond and now ran out of Bond and talk about other movies and shows.
Yeah.
Chrissie, where can people find you when you're not denying people access to the library because they want to do bad things?
Ah, yes. May you find knowledge elsewhere. Go elsewhere. I wish I'd known that. I wish I'd had that phrase at my disposal when I worked at the bookstore. Because there were plenty of times I could have used that. Right, though, in addition to Hearing Infinite Diversity, you can hear me on History with the Szilagys here on the BQN. We're back as of this week. That is a twice-weekly short history podcast I do with my fellow historian partner, Jason. And I'm always happy to chat about our shows in the BQN Collective on Facebook, on Twitter and Blue Sky, and wherever else in the social world. I am the Goddess Livia. That's TheGoddessLivia. And there you can see my opinions on Star Trek and history and leftist politics.
Don't forget all our other great shows on BQN. Here's Amy Nelson to tell you all about them.
What shows are on BQN, you ask? Well, here's a rundown of some podcasts you might be interested in. All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast covering all of Trek, hosted by Amy, Mark, Christos, Kelvin, and Kristen. Whether you've got Xbox or Nintendo, check out Bargain Bin Gamer, a YouTube show hosted by Davey, a self-proclaimed gamer who specializes in reviewing and showcasing affordable video games. 2 episodes enter the arena, 1 comes out victorious. Join hosts Joe and Kevin, and a guest, as they debate which should win the Batleth battle. Grab your popcorn as you listen to Cinema Z, a film discussion and review podcast showcasing films you probably missed, but should definitely check out. Hosted by Mark and Matt. Don your apron for The Food Replicator, where Matthew eats and drinks his way through the Star Trek cocktail and 3 cookbooks. Beam Aboard Galaxy Class, a Star Trek Next Generation podcast covering all of TNG, hosted by Steven. In order to not repeat it, listen to History with the Szilagys, a snippet of historical events from around the world, hosted by Chrissie and Jason. For the newest Trek coverage, check out Infinite Diversity, hosted by Chrissie and Thad. Curl up with a good book and delve into Beta Canon with Peter, host of the online Trek Book Club on Twitter, and his new companion, Trek Book Club podcast. Test your Trek knowledge with Trexperts Quiz, a Star Trek quiz show hosted and written by Davey. Whether you're a member of Starfleet Federation or Planetary Union, go check out Union Federation, covering current Star Trek and the Orville, which we all know is really a Trek show, hosted by Kyle, Kevin, Amy, and Haley. Head over to YouTube and watch The View Screen live on Sundays, your Trek-inspired talk show hosted by Kelvin and Amy, with Season 2 starting in September for a 10-week run. Spill the tea with Christos while he discusses current Trek news and events and explores the world of fandom via guest interviews, all with a LGBTQIA+ perspective on What's the Tea Bev. And for our Patreon members, we have The Hive Mind with monthly script readings, Let's Fly, a Discovery reaction show, It's Green, a cornucopia of topics, Amy's Math Moments, a quick look at math moments in Star Trek. We know you have a choice of podcasts to choose from, and we thank you for listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Thank you so much for tuning into Infinite Diversity. Thank you to Zach Tripp for the wonderful theme music and Mark White for the awesome show art. Please subscribe in your favorite podcast player, and don't forget to rate and review us there as well.
If you want to reach out, you can find the network on Twitter at BQN Podcasts. We're also on Blue Sky, and our show specifically at Idic Podcast, also on Blue Sky. You can also talk about any and all of the BQN podcasts in our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, and in our Discord. When you next hear from us, we'll be talking about the penultimate episode of Star Trek Discovery, Lagrange Point. Until then, peace and long life.